live with you today on the Casey O'Day radio program. I'm here with our great producer, Ross, who is keeping us afloat as we move forward. Obviously hanging out with my good friend and our Chief of Staff, Jack Miner. We're going to take a few minutes in this segment talking about some of the races. We'll talk about certainly the presidential race, which is on everybody's mind now that we're just something about 70-something days away. But there's one guy in the state that is actually the man behind the scenes that's doing all of it in the sense as far as keeping the whole state moving, as far as some of the conservatives and Republicans that you hear about, that you see about, that you hear about on the ads. This is the guy in our state, the chairman of the GOP for North Carolina, Michael Whatley. Michael, we're glad to have you with us today.
Mark, I'm so glad to be with you. I know I start almost every speech I give by saying what a great day to be a Republican. And, as we're kind of coming through the end of the Democratic convention last night, I have to say it is a great day to be a Republican.
There's no question, and we have some incredible candidates that are running statewide. I've had a chance to, and maybe we might hear from some of these later on. In fact, on the docket today, Secretary of State candidate E.C. Sykes. We'll hear from Mark Robinson. We'll hear from Dan Forrest. We know a lot about the president, but I want to start with our Senate candidate. It was neat. I think you were at the event with me the other day to see some of the work on behalf of Senator Thom Tillis when it comes to the veteran community. Would you unpack that event that we had a chance to attend and talk a little bit about Tom's work in the veteran community?
Yeah, Senator Tillis has, throughout his tenure in the Senate, served on two really important committees, which are the Armed Services Committee and the Veterans Affairs Committee. And a lot of folks, when he asked to be on Veterans Affairs Committee, asked why he wanted to be there, and he talked about his commitment to the veterans. And he has really stood tall for North Carolina soldiers and military families and veterans throughout his 6 years in the Senate. And one of the neat things that we've seen with Tom is he had a gentleman named Robert Wilkie who served as his military aide, and Robert is now the confirmed Secretary for Veterans Affairs.
Yeah, and he's doing a great job as well.
Distinguished tenure. Yeah, doing a really good job. And so they had an event with a good friend, Mike Morato, of the Senators, who was wounded in Afghanistan. He lost both legs and an arm, and that they were celebrating the 10th anniversary of his living day, and they were also unveiling a bench at the VFW over in Indian Springs, and they brought Secretary Wilkie down and had just a great outpouring of support for Mike and for the veterans, and it's just something that Tom does every single day that he's there. And one of the other things that we see with Tom on the Judiciary Committee, where he has helped confirm over 200 of Donald Trump's lifetime conservative federal judicial appointments, including both Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, and making sure that we're going to be able to keep that court in conservative hands for another generation.
That's a great point, Michael. And listen, and let's be fair. I know not everybody has been 100% behind different candidates, even including Tom here. But what I have seen, and you, I know you have some work that you've done in D.C. People like Cunningham, they will picture themselves as the moderate. They'll try to act like they're kind of the center place as far as where a lot of North Carolinians are. But when they go to Washington, D.C., they become puppets and rubber stamps for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And I think that's what we have in Cal Cunningham as well.
No question. The guy really, from a legislative standpoint, from a background standpoint, is an empty suit. What he has said is that he is very proud to stand in the liberal tradition, the progressive tradition of Stacey Abrams, of Kamala Harris, and Chuck Schumer. We don't need a progressive from North Carolina. We don't need a radical from North Carolina. Tom is a workhorse. He's not a show horse. He does not do a lot of patting himself on the back when he gets the work done that he does for North Carolina. But there's a reason that Donald Trump has endorsed him. There's a reason that Donald Trump is pushing very hard for him right now, and that we're going to have to get all of the conservative movement behind Tom and recognize the great work that he's done.
We've got a couple minutes here left on this. I want to talk about the guy that's a good friend of KCO Day radio program, and that's the current lieutenant governor running for governor, somebody that I have the utmost respect for, and that's Dan Forest. This guy, you talk about building a grassroots campaign, even overperforming in 2016. We're going to have him come in just a little bit, but tell the audience a little bit about Dan Forest.
Yeah, the first campaign that I ever volunteered for was Jesse Helms' 1984 campaign against Jim Hunt, which was really the strongest grassroots movement anybody's ever seen in North Carolina.
Absolutely.
And Dan has built that apparatus out. He's organized in all 100 counties, and he's got, over 10,000 volunteers that have signed up and are going to go out and knock on doors and make phone calls and really do the legwork that you need to do in a campaign. And it could not be a more perfect contrast with Roy Cooper, who has, we've seen him literally 4 days where he's been outside the governor's mansion in the last 6 months. One of them was a fundraiser in Florida, and, of course, one of them was when he was marching with the rioters and looters and protesters in Raleigh in support of, the vandalism and terrorism that we've seen in downtown Raleigh. We need a governor who understands North Carolina, who will travel across North Carolina, meet with North Carolinians, and bring North Carolina values to the governor's mansion. And Dan could not be a better fit.
I don't think there's a better candidate in all of North Carolina than Dan Forest running for governor. And knowing his family, Alice, and the group there, I love Dan Forest. And then a guy that came out of nowhere, Mark Robinson. In fact, I don't know if you know this or not, Michael. I actually shared his original post when he let me just say, blew up the Greensboro City Council on the Second Amendment. Fox News called me later that day and wanted his information and things, but this guy has become a superstar. I know down east they're loving this guy. Tell us about Mark Robinson.
Yeah, Mark is a man of tremendous faith. He is a very, very solid conservative. I think he missed his call as a Baptist preacher. He's one of the most elegant, powerful speakers that I've seen in politics in generations. And just a very simple bedrock guy who's done a great job organizing grassroots. He's been out, working across the state during his primary. He had a very contested 9-way primary that he cleared without a runoff. That he, hit all 100 counties all across the state, and just is a man of the people, and could not be a harder working, guy.
Yeah, he really is. We look forward to hearing him a little bit later in the show. Of course, Secretary of State E.C. Sykes. And then we've got some wonderful candidates like Madison Cawthorn and Sidney Smith running throughout the state as far as on the federal level. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Also, I want to tell you, I see you, I watch you, I see the kind of father that you are with the boys there and the twins, and the kind of tireless effort that you're putting in to make North Carolina better. I just want to say thank you. God bless. Thanks for joining us today.
No, thank you, Mark, and thank you for your leadership. We appreciate everything that you're doing all across the state to help our Republican candidates.
You got it, Michael. Listen, we're getting ready to go to call-ins at 188-934-7874. We're here live, KCO Day radio program. Stay with us. We'll be right back.